Well, you
You
know,
know, you're awful
they thought
quick-witted this
maybe
morning.
the
You must have had a
oldest
lot of
thing
sleep.
in,
I did.
Central
Wednesday
and
night,
South
9:30.
America was maybe
Thank you.
3,000 or 4,000 years.
I never close them.
I'm thinking it might have been minimum.
Jolton Joe has left and gone away.
Really?
I would now like to call the meeting to order, but before we take roll, I'd like to first invite Mr. Osdemore, our Vice President of Safety and Security, to give a quick safety briefing for all those in attendance, please.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. We are on the second level of MUD headquarters, 17th and Harney. There's two exits to this area, one in the back of the room, one in the front of the room. In the event we have to evacuate, we will do so together and go to the stairs right outside the rear door of the room. Outside of that same door, mounted on the wall, is a fire extinguisher, an automatic external defibrillator, and a first aid kit. And with that, can I have a show of hands, please, of everyone that's certified in CPR and the use of an AED?
No,
With that,
I'm delinquent.
Mr. Mendenhall will be the designated caller in the event we have to call 911. That concludes our safety briefing, if no one has any questions. Thank you, Mr.
I have a
Thanks, Steve.
question. Of course, I'd like to look at that defib and, because I never got qualified in that.
Absolutely.
I'd like to look at it. Okay.
But until you're qualified, don't touch. You can look.
Yeah, I'm wearing paddles right now.
Agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Friend,
Here.
Frost.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Begley.
Here.
Dowd.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, I'd like to advise those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted at the rear of the boardroom. Also want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and become available for public viewing on the MUD website, hopefully at the conclusion of today's proceedings. On that same note, before we begin, Mr. Mendenhall, just a point of order or reminder. On the items that we have to take notes for the candidates, are any notes that we record subject to public record if somebody would request that?
That's true.
Okay, so anything that the board members do record on here, just be mindful that that's also subject or could be subject to a public request issue. So I don't know that we've encountered that in the past or we've talked about it, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to remind people that that's one of the items that we're looking at. So be so advised. If there aren't any other questions or comments, what I thought we would do in the interview process, and because as opposed to live streaming, this is being recorded for purposes of publishing it later on the website, they have recording files, and the files kind of need to be separated, so there may be a little bit of an awkward pause between introduction of the person and then before we begin the actual questions. The way that Jim and I, when the Personnel Committee had thought we would work this was just for, what's the word I'm looking for, Jim? I'm drawing a blank. Just for continuity purposes. Jim is going to address all of the questions, and I would remind the board members that if it's a question that, if you have something that's a clarification or a misunderstanding, no problem asking that candidate for a clarification, or if you didn't hear what the candidate said in response. We do want to try to avoid, since it is a structured interview, asking questions that are not on here, especially if you don't ask the same question of each of the candidates. So we'd kind of like to try to keep it to these structured questions, which is why we shared them before the interview today. But unless anyone has an objection, Jim, as Personnel Chair, will pose all of the questions, and you can take whatever notes you feel necessary, and
I thought it was because I didn't wear a tie, I have to ask questions, but
that too. So if anybody has, without further ado, if there's no questions or comments, we can move into our first candidate. And we need to, just 1 second, Ray, we need to make sure that from the introduction, and I thought I would introduce them and have each board member just say hello and give their name, and then obviously we have nameplates here, so if the candidate forgets the names, we've got the nameplates in front of us. So anybody have any questions or comments or issues with the process? All right, Raid, if you would, please.